Hey, hello. Yeah, Chair Desmond's here, and I am assuming we have a quorum.
Yes, good morning, Chair. We do have a quorum for this meeting.
Yeah. All right. If you could all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll begin the meeting here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States
of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. I guess as we saw earlier today, we want to make sure the members and our public are updated on our new process for both member and public comments. For the primary members, if you want to talk, turn your camera on, and then I'll be able to call on you. So if you want to talk or have a comment, turn your camera on when you have that. And I'm going to ask our legal counsel, Amber Lynn, that's her camera on, to please let us know about the people who are calling in. They've got how they're going to be able to comment. Amber Lynn.
Thank you. Good morning. As noted on the cover page of today's meeting agenda, in addition to emailed comments, the public may also provide live comments during today's meeting. In order for the public to provide comments, you will need to register for the GoToMeeting webinar on the link provided on the cover page of today's agenda. Please join the meeting by clicking on the Join Webinar link provided in the confirmation email you'll receive upon registering. When public comments are called on an item, please click on the Raise Hand icon in the GoToWebinar control panel located on the top right of the screen. You will be called on by the name you registered with and may provide comments for the allotted time. There is no need to mute your microphone. The organizers will unmute you when you are called on. The instructions for providing live comments are also on the bottom of the cover page of today's meeting agenda, which can be accessed from the homepage of Sandag's website at www.sandag.org. All comments, whether they are emailed or live, will be made part of today's meeting record. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Amber Lynn. I don't know, I'm getting some feedback and echoing on my end. Maybe it's just my internet, but it's a little.
It's not. I'm getting it as well. This is Councilmember Montgomery.
Are you getting the feedback as well, or the echo?
Yeah, yes, I am. I'm getting it as well.
This is Mayor Sotelo Solis, and I've got the same thing.
Okay, so I don't know if there's anything staff can do on their end, but I understood Amber Lynn, but there's a little bit of echo. I don't hear it when I'm talking, but so
yes, Chair, this is James from Sandag. It was just Amber Lynn's connection. I think the rest of the audio is fine. We can hear you loud and clear and everybody else.
Okay, all right. Okay, everyone, we'll start with item 1, which is the Transportation Committee meeting minutes from our last meeting. Is there any do we have any public comment on this item?
I do not see any raised hands for public comment.
Public comment, okay. Maybe we have a member comment. Mayor Sotelo Solis.
No, I was actually going to move the item forward there, Chair.
I would second that.
All right, we have a motion from Mayor Sotelo Solis and a second from Mayor Edson. Any other comments on this item? Councilmember Montgomery, do you have a comment on the item? No? Okay. All right, please vote. Or call the roll call, I guess. There you go.
Thank you. On item number 1, North County Inland, Mayor McNamara.
Yes.
South County, let's read the voting slide. Airport Authority, Joanna Schiavone.
Yes.
City of San Diego, Councilmember Monica Montgomery.
Yes.
County of San Diego, Chair Jim Desmond.
Desmond, yes.
East County, Councilmember Bill Baber.
Yes.
MTS, Mayor Alejandra Sotelo Solis. Mayor Sotelo Solis.
Sotelo Solis, aye.
North County Coastal, Mayor Jewel Edson.
Edson, I.
North County Transit, Deputy Mayor Jack Feller.
Feller, yes.
San Diego Port District, Commissioner Gary Benelli.
Benelli, yes.
And South County Vice Chair Phil Sankey.
Sankey, yes.
Thank you. That item passes unanimously.
Chair, I believe you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Moving on to item 2, this is public comments and communications. Do we have any public comments from, I don't see any raised hands. Do you see any on your end, Tessa?
I do not, Chair.
Okay. Any member comments? If you turn your video on, any members of the TC, Councilmember Montgomery? You're muted.
Councilmember Montgomery, yourself.
Sorry. Sorry. Thank you, Chair Desmond. I just want to acknowledge today is June 19th. Juneteenth is a holiday that has been mostly celebrated in the African American community to commemorate the end of slavery in our country. The Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1862, but the last group of slaves did not get freedom until 1865. And so in this climate, especially with everything that's going on in our nation, I just want to set that time aside to commemorate Juneteenth. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Very, you're right. It's very important to recognize that today was one of the smartest things this country ever did was abolish slavery. So Juneteenth. Any other comments? Oh, okay. So we'll carry on then to item number 3, our executive director's report, Hassan.
Supervisor Desmond, Ray Trainer will be giving the executive director's report.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair Desmond. Thank you, Ray Trainer, your Chief Planning Officer. And members of the Transportation Committee, good morning. I'm pleased to tell you that Gustavo Delarda was appointed the District 11 Director by Caltrans Director Tak Samashakan earlier this week. Caltrans District 11 is a close partner, and to have Gustavo lead, it's going to be a real benefit to both the region and to Sandag. Having worked with Gustavo both at my time working at District 11 myself and here at Sandag, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background. He's been a civil engineer with a long career, spans nearly 30 decades. He's delivered a number of really critical transportation projects in the region and delivered a number of these in record time. Gustavo has recently served as the Chief Deputy District Director for the last 2 years with executive responsibility for the operations and maintenance programs, excuse me, and a portion of the capital program. Since September 2019, he's also acted as the District 11 Director. You may know that for more than 10 years, he's worked as the Corridor Director for both Interstate 15 and the I-805 corridors in our region. And as a Corridor Director, he's worked closely with all the transportation partners in the local communities to deliver the $1.4 billion Interstate 15 Express Lanes project and the I-805 HOV Lanes project, 3 new bus rapid transit lines, and a number of active transportation facilities using traditional delivery methods, as well as design sequencing and design build. Early in his career, Gustavo was the project manager assigned to the Imperial Valley goods movement projects like the State Route 11 Expressway project, and also led the development of the environmental document for the Brawley Bypass project, also in Imperial Valley. Gustavo has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the George Washington University, and he also has a master's degree in civil engineering from Stanford. He's a licensed civil engineer, and Gustavo resides here in San Diego with his wife and 2 adult children. And just a little personal note, he enjoys spending time traveling, of course, and hiking and reading. And so I just wanted to congratulate Gustavo He and I have worked together for a long time, and I couldn't think of a better selection for the region's new district director. So Gustavo, congrats. We just want to invite you to say a few words if you'd like.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate the introduction. Ray mentioned I'm a long-time San Diego resident as well as transportation practitioner. Ray kind of covered all of my professional career. So I just want to say I look forward to continue working with all of you to deliver more multimodal transportation projects. Some of the ones that I'm most proud of is some of the active transportation projects that we delivered on I-15, particularly the bike path south of I-8 between 8 and Adams Avenue. I know there's an item later on the agenda that will give us an update about our status of our active transportation projects. And as well as the rapid lines on 15 and 805, and as well as the express lanes on 15. Again, I look forward to continue working with all of you. Like Ray mentioned, I'm not a stranger. I've been acting in this assignment for 8 months, and I've been particularly enjoying working with all of you, as well as with MTS and CTD and all of our other transportation partners for the last 30 years. Chair Desmond, I have a few generic announcements. I should have made them during member comments. I can make them now if you wouldn't mind. Is that all right? Can I proceed?
Yes, please, Gustavo. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair Desmond. A couple of the things that I mentioned last week at the Board of Directors, but I wanted to reiterate, is the California Office of Emergency Services is helping agencies and organizations that are trying to reopen with securing personal protective equipment if they are not able to get it. So that is available also to commercial private entities. The caveat is they need to let the California OES office know that they're not able to secure those things that they need to reopen, and Cal OES will step in and help everybody out. Also related to COVID, our district has about 40 employees that have been tapped so that they will be conducting contact tracing related to COVID. So that's a small way that our district here in Caltrans District 11 can help the state reopen and helping contact tracing. Earlier this week, we filed the notice of preparation for the Coronado Suicide Prevention Barrier on June 15th that opens a 30-day public scoping comment period. And next week on Thursday, we will have a virtual meeting where we can receive comments from the public regarding the alternatives that we're going to be studying as part of the environmental document for the Coronado Suicide Prevention Barrier. So letters have gone out to all of our interested stakeholders. So hopefully you've all received them. And if not, let me know and I can connect you with the information regarding the project as well as the public hearing next week. Our director, Omishakin, was confirmed by the Senate on June 11th. And then yesterday, Caltrans announced awarding $21 million in planning grants that are funded partly by SB1 and partly by Federal Strategic Partnership Program. Of those 21 million, about 2.7 million were awarded to projects in San Diego County, including for the cities of Encinitas, La Mesa, San Diego, Solana Beach, and a few grants for Sandag. These planning grants will help us figure out transportation issues like active transportation, complete streets, transit, electrical vehicle charging station, and also parking infrastructure. So that is a great announcement. And then this week on Tuesday, we announced that we resumed the litter pickup along our highways. And I know that that's an issue that I need to work on with all of you. I've received a few letters from some of the mayors in North County, and I've been trying to reach out to them to let them know that we're on top of it. Unfortunately, during COVID, we had to suspend our litter pickup activities particularly with all of our partners from Adopt the Highway, the Veteran Outreach Program, the program that we have with the courts. Because of the stay-home orders, none of those programs could continue. And also, picking up litter affected our staff's ability to do it, because it's a labor-intensive activity where you have people in close proximity. And as we were in stage 1 of the COVID crisis, we couldn't continue that activity. So earlier this week, on the community of Emerald Hills, we announced that we're resuming those activities with some modification from what we were doing before COVID, because we still need to social distance. Unfortunately, in our district, we've had 5 COVID positive cases, and that affected both our staff availability for the people that actually contracted the illness and also the people that were around them. So we still need to be very vigilant, but we are aware that the trash is a problem in our highways, and we're going to do everything we can to remove it, and also continue working with you to try to identify the origins of the trash and also try to attack it from that end. Why we were at Emerald Hills with the event, but we really, all of our forces were all over the county removing trash. The reason we were at Emerald Hills is because it's the place where our last adoptee from the Adopt a Highway program came from. The neighborhood council from Emerald Hills adopted the ramps at Elton Boulevard, and that's a great program that helps us statewide. They pick up about 1/3 of the trash on our transportation system, so we really value that partnership. And we were there also with the CHP, just as a reminder of 2 things. One is watch out for the people picking up trash, because they're risking their lives really to keep our freeways clean. And whether they are Caltrans employees or our partners, we ask all motorists to watch out for them. And the CHP helps us tremendously to keep everybody safe. But also the CHP has the responsibility of making sure that if people are transporting goods or things that may make their way onto the roadway, to stop them and ticket them. And last year they issued 3,100 tickets because a ladder or a couch or a mattress that falls on the road can really threaten somebody's life. So we thank the partnership with the CHP. And I would like to thank you for allowing me to ramble on. Thank you.
And we're going to have to agendize you at next meeting, Gustavo.
Sorry, Chair Desmond.
All right. So the chair's report is getting longer and longer. Thanks for the information. Ray, did you have anything else?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have just a few more items, and I'll try to get through these quickly. So last Friday, many of you know that the Board of Directors did approve the fiscal year 21 final budget, which totals $1.18 billion and includes more than $775 million in projected spending on capital improvements, with most of those a part of the Transnet program of projects. The budget also includes $46.3 million for the planning and program and $62 million for regional operations. Based on the economic crisis caused by the pandemic, we did revise the funding status in early spring, projecting a 13% drop in revenues. And from mid-May until the board approved the budget last week, the budget increased by 2.5% due to an increase in outside funding, which includes funding from the California Transportation Commission, which allocated $27.4 million to the State Route 11 Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project. And the Del Mar Bluffs Stabilization Project was awarded $11.6 million from the Federal Railroad Administration State of Good Repair Program and $4.9 million from the Transit and Intercity Rail Program in April, and $13.8 million in a construction cooperative agreement for a new project for UC San Diego as part of the Midcoast trolley improvements. We had several draft budget presentations to the Board of Directors who asked a number of really good questions, and credit does go to our CFO, Andre Dujon, for working through all those issues. And we've committed to the board that we'll continue to watch the economic crisis as it unfolds, and we'll have quarterly check-ins with the board on the budget. Gustavo mentioned the planning grant awards, and this is just more good news, and I'd just like to highlight a few of these. Sandag received $1.8 million from the Caltrans Planning Grant Awards. We had submitted 9 applications, and 6 of those were funded. Those that were funded were the Breeze Bus Planning Study for $309,000, the Coastal Connections Project for $240,000, the Electric Vehicle Management Program for $309,000, a Regional Parking Inventory Study for $282,000, a Regional Rail Higher Speed and Reliability Study for $194,000, and the Mission Valley Transit Study for almost $500,000. Now, Sandag's match requirements is $251,000, and staff that worked on these grant proposals are to be commended for their great work. Another item I'd just like to highlight, our chief economist, Ray Major, and his team will issue a report this week showing the extraordinary impact of the pandemic and the economic crisis that it has had on our Black and Hispanic communities. We believe it will be instrumental in helping our elected leaders shape policies and programs to help these communities that are in desperate need. Here are just a few things that Ray's study has found. When compared to the white population, Black and Hispanic populations are more than 4 times as likely to live in areas that have been impacted by COVID-19 and unemployment. More than 2/3 of the region's Black and Hispanic populations reside in zip codes with higher than average unemployment rates. And approximately half of Black and Hispanic residents live in zip codes with higher than average COVID-19 cases. Your chief economist, Ray Major, has been interviewed by local media, and we're working on setting up briefings with elected officials and regional leaders. If you on the Transportation Committee would like a briefing on the data behind this report, please let Phil Traum know, and we'll get that set up. And we can also forward a copy of the report to you. And then 2 more brief items. Just wanted to give you an update that staff continues to work with the U.S. Navy to develop the opportunity at the Central Mobility Hub as a part of the Navy's redevelopment of its NAVWAR complex off Pacific Highway in the Midway area of San Diego. And I'm glad to report that Assembly Bill 2731, offered by Assemblymember Todd Gloria, was officially and unanimously passed by the Assembly last week, and now it's on its way to the Senate. This bill clarifies and strengthens certain public participation provisions and the government transparency in the CEQA process for a major transit and transportation facility. So this is really great news for the Central Mobility Hub. And one more thing about our regional plan, we're still on schedule, and the draft will be ready in April of 2021, with the board set to consider it the following fall. We expect to present the vision to a joint Transportation and Regional Planning Committee meeting on August 7th, followed by a week later to the Board of Directors on August 14th. And we're working with the board chairman now on a site that will accommodate an in-person meeting where we have accommodated for social distancing. And we're still also looking at having a hybrid, which would allow both in-person and virtual participation in this important meeting as well. And we'll know more details in just a couple of weeks. And finally, just wanted you all to know that on June 5th, we began a phased reopening of the Sandag offices here at 401 B Street for our employees, and as well as in the Toll Operations Center in Otay Mesa. Many of the Sandag directors began working from the office to help prepare it for our employees, and who for productivity needs needed to come back to the office beginning this week. We expect that most of our staff will continue to telework during this phased reopening. We've completed a set of very detailed policies and procedures and protocols that ensure the safety of the staff, as well as adhere to both the county and state health orders. We continue to plan for opening of the office, and we're working on having a hybrid in-person and virtual meetings for you on the committee level, the board, and all of the working groups as well. These hybrid meetings, where we take place both in person and virtually, will not happen until mid-July at the earliest, and we'll notify you and working with the chair of all the special protocols that we'd be in place. So I want to just thank you for your patience. I had a lot to get through this morning, and Chair Desmond, that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Do we have any comments or questions from board members or committee members? How about any testimony, raised hands from the public?
I do not see any public comments or raised hands.
Mayor Itzen is on here. Comment, Mayor?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to congratulate Gustavo on his promotion and also to thank him for the Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant for the Safe Routes to School Master Plan for the city of San Diego. It's an exciting grant for us. So thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, thanks everyone. We may have to start agendizing some of these things here on the chair's report. There's a lot of information coming out, which is good. But it seems the chair's report's almost as long as the meeting sometimes here. So we'll move on here. Oops. We'll move on to item number 5. The chair's report, I actually have an approve on here. Do we have? No, it's just discussion. Item number 4, I got ahead. Item number 4, this is asking the Transportation Committee to approve the appointment of Mayor Edson to the FACT Board. Mayor Edson has graciously accepted to remain on the FACT Board as a Transportation Committee representative. Just curious if there's any comments on her serving on this committee or motions.
In lieu of a comment, this is Bill Sankey. I'd like to make the motion to appoint the mayor as staff has recommended.
Okay. Is there do we have any public comments, Tessa?
No, Chair, I do not see any hands raised. I have no public comments at this time.
Okay, I'll go ahead and second the motion to keep it going. And since there's no other comments, the mayor of National City approves my second.
I was going to second it before you seconded, so I will third it. Thank you, Chair.
I didn't see any videos or any pictures up, so I thought I'd just go ahead and do that. Okay, can we have a roll call vote?
Chair Desmond, I see Councilmember Baber. Before we do the vote, I don't know if you had a comment.
I'm just getting ready to vote. Just getting ready to vote, sir.
Okay, thank you. So on item 4, San Diego Airport Authority, Joanna Schiavone.
Yes.
City of San Diego, Councilmember Monica Montgomery.
Yes.
County of San Diego, Supervisor or Chair Jim Desmond.
Desmond, yes.
East County, Councilmember Bill Baber.
Yes.
MTS, Mayor Alejandra Sotelo
Solis, yes.
North County Coastal, Mayor Jewel Edson.
Do I need to abstain or can I vote yes?
You can vote.
Yes.
North County Inland, Mayor Paul McNamara.
McNamara, yes.
North County Transit, Deputy Mayor Jack Feller.
Feller, yes.
Port of San Diego, Commissioner Gary Benelli.
Benelli, yes.
South County, Vice Chair Bill Sankey.
Sankey, yes.
Thank you. That item passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jewel, for stepping up for that position. FACT is a very important part of the transportation network, and glad you're there. Okay, moving on to item 5. This is a presentation for the proposed fiscal year 2021 transit agency operating budgets for both MTS and NCTD. Sandy Craig from County and William Clark Lynch, here for the presentation.
Thank you. Good morning. Sandag is responsible for approving the transit agency's budgets for funding, which has been delegated to the Transportation Committee as part of Board Policy Number 1. In May, Sandag provided the transit agencies with revised funding estimates, which they used as input for their budget development process. In reviewing the budget, Sandag has determined that the uses of funding are consistent with the estimates provided. Attachments 1 and 2 contain narrative and numerical summaries of key budget information as presented by MTS and NCTD. The MTS Board of Directors approved their fiscal year 21 budget on May 14th, and NCTD Board of Directors approved theirs yesterday on June 18th. The recommendation today will be for the Transportation Committee to approve MTS and NCTD's fiscal year 21 budgets for funding. And first, Matt Tucker from NCTD and Sharon Cooney from MTS are here to give presentations for their respective agencies. Matt.
Good morning. This is Matt Tucker again, Executive Director for North County Transit District. I want to walk you guys through our budget for the fiscal year 2021 through 2025. Can I have the next slide, please? So the beginning of our budget process, we really focus in on establishing the key priorities and goals. We focus in on a 5-year look at the budget in a very detailed manner, but we also plan out for the next 10 years. We attempt to adopt a strategy that supports both revenue, expenses, and cash flow needs in a pretty detailed way with enough flexibility should the economy either adjust upward or adjust downward. Next slide, please. So in terms of like key capital projects and initiatives, we're advancing our zero emission bus program. Next month, our board will be asked to approve an item for the procurement of electric buses. We're advancing studies associated with implementation of hydrogen buses. Based upon funding that we've received from Sandag, we're advancing the procurement of 2 new coaster train sets. We're hoping those new trains will arrive in 2023. If all of you recall, this will allow us to move from 22 trains per day up to 42 trains per day. Another key thing that I do want to mention that's very exciting is the Oceanside Transit Center development project. We have issued a request for proposals for development at that site. We have received 4 great proposals, and we are working through those proposals and hoping that we can come back to our board in September with a recommendation for an award. In terms of key priority needs, Delmar Bluffs is at the top of the list. I want to commend the Sandag staff for collaborating with NCTD over the last few months. I think we have made significant progress towards advancing projects 5 and 6. As always, we still have significant capital needs beyond Delmar Bluffs that exceed over $1 billion. So one of the key things for us is to continue plugging away one by one to fund our capital needs. Next slide, please. So the COVID-19 financial impact for NCTD in terms of ridership is pretty much no different than any other transit agency experiencing. I would tell you there are a little bit differences in terms of the modes. From what I've seen from a national and local basis, commuter rail operators like the Coaster Service, Metrolink, and Amtrak, our ridership declines are significantly higher on those modes than they are, for example, on our bus or our Spreader DMU service. Ridership obviously equates to customer revenue. As of the April report, we were down about 72% system-wide. We have seen some improvements in terms of the average weekday ridership. The revenue is not necessarily trending along the same line because we have de-emphasized fare enforcement. Next slide. So in terms of developing our budget, I wanted just to make sure we disclose kind of our key major assumptions. Obviously, we use the revenue estimates provided by the state and Sandag. We did receive $95 million in CARES Act funding. As I've said to our board, you know, in the absence of that money being approved in the very timely manner that it was approved, you would have seen draconian reductions in transit service on a nationwide basis. We do assume that ridership would recover to about 90% level by the end of fiscal year 2021, June 30th, 2021. That may or may not play out that way, but that's the assumption for now. But we have intentionally done enough stress testing that we could deal with various scenarios, including the scenario of ridership trending down by 75% for the entire fiscal year. In terms of our budget process, we intentionally conservatively estimate expenses high, and we estimate revenues on the low end. we continue within this budget to make investments to support service improvements and achieve a state of good repair. Next slide. So we're planning to use approximately $20.7 million of CARES Act funding for the upcoming fiscal year 2021. We at this point, in terms of CARES Act dollars, have not yet had to use it for fiscal year 2020. We believe for the months of April, May, and June will likely be the months that we will start using CARES Act money for the current budget. Next slide. So in terms of this budget, you can see it's a robust budget. It's about a $9.9 million increase from the prior fiscal year. And again, we take a long-range approach to managing our budget. I will state, for example, within our 2024 budget, so the last year's fiscal year budget, we started making assumptions about an economic downturn and even enhanced our focus in on cost reduction measures. And so we were trending in a very positive variance in terms of expense management. Within this 2021 budget, there are some significant things that are going on. We have enhanced our line items related to professional services to deal with some of one-time events that we really want to take care of. There's also a significant increase in terms of our casualty and liability insurance, and that's just a function of the market. We're projecting a 40% increase, so that's like a $2 million add in terms of our liability insurance. And this is an international trend, particularly for those folks who are in the railroad business, of seeing significant increases related to liability insurance for railroad operations. Next slide, please. So in terms of our 5-year budget forecast, as you can see, we continue to project a 5-year budget that is balanced. At this point, we're assuming CARES Act funding throughout the 5-year period based upon the $95 million that we have. But that may not play out that way in terms of the CARES Act funding. So we're strategically managing our expenses with the CARES Act funding to make sure we're not potentially caught up in the federal government deciding to rescind those funds. Next slide, please. In terms of performance measures for North County Transit District, I will note that in general, over all of the slides that you're going to see, is that we are doing a pretty good job in terms of managing our expenses. Our fare box recovery in terms of the bus mode is about 14.2%. I would note that this is based upon 2018 National Transit Database information. Obviously, based upon COVID-19 impacts, it's going to be lower. But assuming COVID-19 did not happen, the Sandag board had approved increases to our to the fare policy, which likely would have had a positive impact on the fare box recovery. Next slide. So in terms of commuter rail, you can see that our coaster fare box recovery is about 30%. We do very well when you compare us against the rest of our peers. Our productivity numbers are good, especially if you consider in terms of the population base that we serve with the very, very limited service that we operate today. Next slide, please. So this is our hybrid rail service. So it's called the Sprinter. For those of folks who are not familiar, this is a service that operates with a DMU service, a DMU vehicle. That's a diesel multiple unit. So unlike MTS's trolley, which is electrified, our vehicle obviously operates on diesel. And as you can see, we are one of the more cost-effective entities in the country as it relates to that service. That service has been a very significant service for us, and the ridership exceeds the ridership that occurs on the coaster. And very pleasantly, this service has performed exceedingly well during the COVID-19 impacts. Next slide. So I think that completes my presentation, and I will leave it at the discretion of the chair about questions. Thank you.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. Do we have any questions for NCTD? I'll just note that as an NCTD board member myself, yesterday we passed this budget unanimously. for them. Mr. Benelli.
Yeah, Mr. Tucker, just a question. I'm curious on slide number 7. I believe it's FY23. You peak at over 190 million, sort of peaks and then goes back down. What's that peak? Why is there a peak there?
Let me take a look at that. So the peak is primarily related to our capital improvement program. So if you go down and take a look at that, that's going to be the peak primarily related to the procurement of and delivery of rail vehicles and payments.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Well, before we go to the public, how about we have Sharon Cooney from MTS. Oh, Monica, Ms. Montgomery, you have a question.
Yes, just really quick, Mr. Tucker. You mentioned de-emphasizing your fare enforcement, or I don't know if I got that correct. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, obviously, during this period, the top priority for us is providing the critical service for essential workers and taking care of our employees and customers. And similar to MTS, we both have implemented rear door boarding on the buses. And as a matter of implementing rear door boarding, that means the operator on the bus side is not interfacing with the passengers directly about fare enforcement. And so within the overall realm of managing through this situation, we would probably take a much more focused approach to how we handle fare enforcement in terms of deployment of our security services, in terms of activities that we do to support fare enforcement. Those activities have obviously been de-emphasized during this period of time to focus in on providing essential services, safety of employees, and mitigating any potential conflicts that would occur.
Okay, so it's more of a COVID-19 type strategy as opposed to a long-term kind of strategy.
Yes, ma'am. Because obviously, as we move forward in the future, if you don't have the CARES Act funding, fares are just essential to our operations, and we won't be in a position to be able to say we're not going to emphasize fare collection, because otherwise we would be faced with the difficult situation of reducing services.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Oh.
All right, thanks, Matt. Ms. Cooney, Sharon. Hey, first of all, congratulations on your new position.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we're sorry to lose Paul, but I think you're well positioned for this position, so thanks. Okay.
Thank you. Do you want to pull up the PowerPoint? Thank you. Good morning. Could you please go to the first slide? So I'm going to go through a few of the highlights from the year. Obviously, everything is a lot different now than it was the beginning of the year, but we did do a free ride day with great success. We had a 30% ridership increase, which demonstrates that we were able to get a lot of new people out on the system through this method, and we got a lot of positive feedback from the public. Another great thing that we launched this past year was the zero emission bus pilot. We have 8 battery electric buses in service. And what we're looking to do is we will be getting another 12 buses for our future bus rapid transit in the South Bay. So this is a great program. Next slide, please. We've also commissioned an MTS economic impact report last year. We were hoping to show the public what their investment in transit has done for them. For every dollar that the public invests, we do see a $2.82 return. That really speaks volumes to the fact that we should be investing in transit to make San Diego County economic impact. Also, we have the Pronto Next Generation Fare Collection System. We've finalized design on that this year, and we will be launching it in mid-2021. Next slide, please. The impacts to us from COVID are pretty extreme. 67% ridership decrease. We've done quite a bit in increasing our sanitizing protocols. Our number one concern is to make sure that both our employees and the public are safe. We need to continue to provide the service so that our essential workers can get to their jobs and back home. We've implemented new guidelines for requiring face masks, and we also are requesting social distancing. One of the things that we've done, which most other transit agencies have not done to the same level, is we've maintained our service levels. That way people can have enough room to socially distance. We've also put hand wash stations at all of our transit stops, our trolley stops, as well as some of our busier transit stations. In the end, what we're seeing is that we are now going to be increasing our transit services again to pre-COVID levels. As of this week, we increased trolley to pre-COVID levels. And then next weekend, we will be increasing bus service as well to pre-COVID levels. This will allow people to socially distance as we're seeing ridership increases. We're gaining ridership quite a bit and carrying about almost 100,000 passengers a day. Next slide, please. We've had leadership changes, and Chair Desmond mentioned myself, as well as the new MTS board chair, County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher. He will be his term runs through December 31st, 2021. That was in recognition of the fact that we will be opening Midcoast Trolley, and he will be helping us shepherd in the new fare collection system. Next slide, please. There are a lot of unknowns in this budget cycle. What I'm going to show you today is our best guesstimate based on the projections that we're seeing. Passenger revenue obviously is the largest impact to us. We anticipate that it will improve each month, but not back to 100% of the baseline in FY21. We also are using the Sandag projections that were presented in April for our sales tax revenue projections. But again, that's a guesstimate that we will certainly be monitoring as the year goes by. And then we are anticipating severe reductions in state transit assistance and our other operating revenues. With expenses, we're keeping our full service levels in fiscal year 21. We expect, we also have added in anticipated COVID-19 impacts. With regard to CARES Act, we did get a portion, 220 million, and I will show you that we will be using this in the next several years. Next slide, please. So here's our combined budget for fiscal year 21. Operating revenues obviously is the big concern. We also are anticipating about a 3.5% increase in expenses over the year. One of the unknowns for us is we are bidding out some of our contracts for directly operated contracted fixed route bus, as well as a contract for our security services. And those may be impacted by both COVID-19 related economic impacts, or we also might be seeing an increase based on increased minimum wage. Next slide. This is our 5-year projection. I wanted to note to you that we have plugged in the CARES Act funding for each of the years. We're projecting about $101 million use of CARES Act in fiscal year 21. Major assumptions, we are assuming that Midcoast Trolley will open on time, partial year in fiscal year 22, with a full year in fiscal year 23 and 24. We've already started staffing up for Midcoast. You know, you have to train the operators as well as the mechanics in time for the opening, and we will be hiring some more security to staff for that line. This is in conjunction with the Sandag staff as well. We anticipate recovery from the recession throughout the 5-year projection. But I will note to you that in the last big recession, we did not see getting back to baseline for 6 years. So we're going to be carefully monitoring that. Deficits loom in the future once the CARES Act revenue is exhausted. But again, as the NCTD has mentioned, we will be monitoring our expenses very closely. But right now we're averaging a 3.4% expense growth per year. Next slide. This is a comparison pre-COVID, obviously. We are always going to monitor our performance through metrics, and this shows you that we are certainly we're at the peak of our colleagues in other areas. And so this is just a slide to continue that growth to show you that we are monitoring our metrics, and we'll do so once the effects of COVID are lifted. And with that, I believe that's the last slide, and I will take any questions.
Oh, anybody has a question, turn your camera on. In the meantime, Tessa, do we have any public comments? Oh.
I do see a raised hand by Councilmember Gasterland in the attendees list.
Oh, we've got Councilmember Montgomery and then Mayor Sotelo Solis. So we'll have them first, and then we'll check on anybody else. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I just want to publicly thank Sharon and the staff for really not missing a beat in spite of everything that has happened, and just, you know, being steadfast in ensuring that we have public transit that is running efficiently and up to par, even with all of the challenges that you all have faced this year. So thank you, Sharon. I just want to say that, and please let the staff know as well. I just wanted to publicly say thank you.
I will do. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Sotelo Solis.
Gracias, Chair. So I just wanted to, again, thank CEO Cooney, one on her new position, but also too for the way she truly has stepped in. As we know that this is extremely difficult times, but as we discuss what our funding priorities are, you fund what your priorities are, and how you express that is where you put your money. And, you know, I'm very proud of this board and this leadership, because when it comes to whether it be pilot programs, you know, for example, yesterday the board approved the diversion program for fare violators, and we revealed our electric bus program. You know, those are extremely important programs. And as well as this morning, I just got the announcement via our email blast. It was, we have new safety protocols for taxi cab drivers and passengers. Again, it's all of these elements that truly help us as policymakers when we want to encourage people to take mass transit and take public transportation, knowing that, you know, there's a little anxiety of going out the door. And then if you do not have transportation, knowing that they will be safe, and we are taking all the precautions necessary to make sure that it happens. Now, on the other side is, how do we pay for all of this? And, you know, we don't have that crystal ball, which is challenging. You know, if we did, that would be awesome. But, you know, we don't know what the impacts are with the economy. We don't know what potentially a second a wave of COVID could do to our economy again. But we do have the CARES Act money that will help kind of get us through for a little while. And as you saw, CEO Cooney kind of shared that in 2023, I think, because we're going to be facing some challenges. And I think we have time between now and 2023 to really think proactively what we need to do to kind of get steps in place. And so the MTS board, again, will be reviewing our financials this fall, and like many people throughout the course of the year, to see and really close those projections, but really see where we would need to make adjustments if necessary. And again, we look forward to, you know, bridging those deficits, but even more so having the dialogue. Wearing my MTS hat today with Sandag, North County Transit, and all of our partners, because it truly takes a dialogue to help make ends meet, to find ways to close the deficit, and to keep people on transit. Because beyond COVID, you know, we had talked about the impact on the environment, lowering our greenhouse gas emissions, really seeing how mass transit was a solution, one of the solutions to that. And so the intermodal opportunities are there, and I want to thank CEO Cooney for helping us lead the way there at MTS. Thank you, Chair, and I support. I don't know if we need to make a motion to approve said item, but
Yes,
I would
we
be
do.
willing to. I'm sorry?
Yes, we do. We need a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the item.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Jewel, Mayor Edson, do you have comments? Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
I would second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Tessa, do we have any other members or public comments?
I do see two public comments, two people with their hands raised.
Okay, can you call on them because I can't see it?
Councilmember Terry Gasterland.
Okay.
Okay. It flips back and forth between being muted and unmuted. Hello, this is Deputy Mayor Gasterland from Del Mar. And Sharon, I want to say thank you very much for stepping up and joining. I'm on the NCTD board, and NCTD is certainly looking forward to working with MTS even more seamlessly. I say that as a resident of Del Mar, which sits right at the border of NCTD and MTS. So I wanted to plant a few seeds of ideas. One is young people. I'm also a professor at UCSD, and the MTS buses are incredibly well used at UCSD. Sometimes there are lines of students that are 3 buses worth long, and they have to wait for bus after bus to actually get on the bus to get home. So there's potential there for actually extra buses on the routes. And I would welcome, as a UCSD professor, working with you on the possibility of that. Another idea I'd like to plant is Google Maps. Whenever I need to ride the bus, because NCTD does not have the same app that MTS does, I simply use Google Maps to figure out when is the next bus coming and when will it be here. And magically, Google Maps is really on the dot with timing, both for MTS and NCTD. So there might be room for some sort of partnership there. And something like that certainly would get to the young people, because that's one of the ways that they figure out how to get from one place to the next. The third seed is I have a weekly meeting during COVID times of community leaders in Del Mar. We do a Zoom every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. I would certainly welcome you to join us and talk to our leadership about MTS in an informal way. But one of the things we've done every week, I poll, are people willing to use public transportation? And among at least the community leaders who are older, it's 100% fearful. So, you know, I'll look forward to disseminating within Del Mar the measures that you are taking. So I think having a poster, for example, that can be put up at bus stops might be really helpful. And the last thing, the seed of an idea, is e-bikes. So my family has given up a car. We now have 1, and we have 3 e-bikes. So we use that to get to UCSD, and we use that to get to the Sorrento Valley train station or the Solana Beach train station. But a problem is locking up those bikes. So we may be able to somehow incentivize that people, if they ride their e-bike and use some sort of lockup service, maybe they can get a discount on the MTS. So a way of incentivizing people to use their e-bikes for that last mile. So again, thank you very much. And this was Deputy Mayor Terry Gasterland of Del Mar.
Okay, thank you. Tessa, anyone else?
Yes, sir. I see a hand raised by Jean I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce the name. Guillaume Langeret.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, very briefly, thank you for the report. I'm with SD 350. Two questions about Pronto. Will it do away with cash, and will it rely only on smartphones?
No, it won't rely only on smartphones, and it will not do away with cash.
Thank you.
Okay, no other comments. So we do have a motion and a second on the approval of the proposed 2021 transit agency operating budgets. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. On item 5, San Diego Airport Authority, Joanna Schiavone.
Schiavone, yes.
City of San Diego, Councilmember Monica Montgomery.
Yes.
County of San Diego, Chair Jim Desmond.
Desmond, yes.
East County, Councilmember Bill Baber.
Yes.
Metropolitan Transit System, Mayor Sotelo Solis.
Sotelo Solis, aye.
North County Coastal, Mayor Jewel Edson.
Edson, yes.
North County Inland, Mayor Paul McNamara.
McNamara, yes.
North County Transit District, Deputy Mayor Jack Feller.
Feller, C.
Port of San Diego, Commissioner Gary Bonelli.
Benelli, yes.
And South County, Vice Chair Bill Sankey.
Sankey, yes.
Thank you. Item 5 passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to say thank you to all of the presenters. We had Sandy, Matt, and Sharon, and thank you staff and Tessa for coordinating with public comment speakers. That was good. Okay, we got item number 6. This is a draft 2020 coordinated plan. Lisa Matson is going to be giving us a presentation. Yes, I got a question here, I guess, for our attorney. It says it has an accept. It doesn't have approve, it doesn't have information. What is accept? Is there action that needs to be taken, or we just hear the item?
Chair, this is Amberlynn Griffin. The action that's before you today is accepting the report so that it can be distributed for public comment. The item is scheduled to come back to the Transportation Committee for a public hearing at a later date. This is the first step in simply releasing the report.
So we don't need a motion or an action on this today. Okay, I'm just.
If I could just clarify, sir, the motion is to accept the report and release for public comment.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, sorry, Lisa, thanks.
No worries. Good morning. I'm here today to ask the committee to accept and release the draft 2020 coordinated plan for public review and comment, and to schedule a public hearing for the July 17th, 2020 Transportation Committee meeting. The coordinated plan is updated every 2 years and provides a 5-year blueprint for the implementation of the transit and specialized transportation concepts described in Sandag's regional plan. The coordinated plan is a federal requirement necessary for Sandag to receive and distribute federal 5310 funds. It must include an assessment of current transportation services, an assessment of transportation needs for individuals with disabilities, older adults, and people with low incomes, strategies to address the identified gaps between current services and needs, and priorities for implementation based on resources, time, and feasibility. Changes in this plan from the 2018 plan include an updated set of priorities for project funding based on public input and feedback from the Sandag Social Service Transportation Advisory Council, known as STAC. Much of the input received included continued support for existing volunteer driver, shuttle, and transit fare subsidy programs, as well as a desire for new or expanded services, including on-demand transportation solutions. Inclusion of MTS NCTD, and FACT service implementation plans, which include operational changes, future service needs, and short-range transit projects included in the 2019 federal RTP. Additionally, the 2020 plan includes a performance monitoring section which evaluates transit and specialized transportation in the San Diego region through a set of established performance measures. The results show that the public transportation system has faced challenges in recent years due to declining ridership. This is not news to all of you and has been reported in other monitoring efforts. Both MTS and NCTD are working to improve this trend and realize the benefits of those improvements in 2019. If approved today, the public comment period will open for 4 weeks and close at noon on July 16th, 2020. On July 17th, we will discuss any comments received to date, hold a public hearing to further hear from the public, and ask for final approval. Due to the extensive outreach we do, including public notices and emails to stakeholders, most of our stakeholders are able to review the draft plan and provide comments well before the July 16th deadline. So the Transportation Committee is asked to accept and release for public review and comment the draft 2020 coordinated plan and to schedule a public hearing for the July 17th, 2020 transportation hearing. And to schedule a public hearing for the July 17th, 2020 Transportation Committee meeting. That concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have any public questions or any raised hands, Tessa?
Thank you, Chair. I do not see any public comments or raised hands at this time.
Okay, and then I guess from committee, if there's any questions or comments or a motion from the committee members, we'd welcome those as well. Okay,
Chair?
And make the motion to accept the draft 2020 coordinated plan.
Chair?
Move to approve or move to accept.
And I'd like to go ahead and second it and thank Lisa for her hard work, particularly recognizing the involvement of community organizations in the formation of this particular document. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a couple of seconds. Can we go ahead and Tessa can call a roll call vote?
Thank you, Chair. On item 6, San Diego County Airport Authority, Joanna Schiavone.
Schiavone is a yes.
City of San Diego, Councilmember Monica Montgomery.
Montgomery, yes.
County of San Diego, Chair Jim Desmond.
Desmond, yes.
East County, Councilmember Bill Baber.
Yes.
MTS, Mayor Alejandro Sotelo Solis.
Sotelo Solis, aye.
North County Coastal, Mayor Jewel
Edson, yes.
Excuse me. North County Inland, Mayor Paul McNamara.
McNamara, yes.
North County Transit District, Deputy Mayor Jack Feller.
Feller, aye.
Port of San Diego, Commissioner Gary Benelli.
Benelli, yes.
South County Vice Chair Bill Sankey.
Sankey, yes.
Thank you. That item passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Okay, item number 7. This is the Transportation Development Act and State Transit Assistant Claims. Ariana Zerneden is going to be giving us a presentation. Hi, Ariana, welcome.
Thank
Please go ahead.
you. Thank you. Good morning, Chair Desmond and Transportation Committee members. Sandag, as the designated regional transportation planning agency, or the RTPA, is responsible for the allocation of TDA funds to the region's transit operators. This fund source provides a 0.25% of the state sales tax for operating and capital support of public transportation systems and non-motorized transportation projects. Today's item is reflective of a series of steps that have been presented and approved by the board since February leading up to today. First, as you may recall, at both its February and May meetings, as part of the Transnet TDA and STA revenue estimates presented, the board approved the fiscal year 21 TDA revenue apportionment. That is estimated by the San Diego County Auditor's Office each year. Secondly, and pursuant to state statute at its June 12th meeting, the Sandag board determined that both MTS and NCTD made a reasonable effort to implement the productivity improvements that were outlined for fiscal year 20 and approved to continue the current performance program in fiscal year 21. And that is what allows the transit agencies to seek their full TDA available to them today. Third, at its March 27th meeting, staff also presented to you and the board approved the transit operator capital improvement programs for fiscal year 21. And you just approved the transit agency operating budgets earlier on your agenda today. Those transit operator capital improvement and operating budgets are partially funded by TDA revenues and are consistent with claims being presented to you today. And then finally, this item also includes TDA funds for the Inland Rail Trail Bike Project. This is also consistent with prior board action to fund a region-wide priority list of bike projects where TDA and Transnet funds are both used on your regional bikeway early action program. The final step in the process is today's item, which describes the TDA and STA program claims. Attachment 1 provides a summary of the claims by article for each agency, and Attachment 2 includes all the resolutions. The Transportation Committee is asked to recommend that the Board of Directors adopt, number 1, resolution numbers 2020-23 through 2020-28, approving the fiscal year 2021 Transportation Development Act and State Transit Assistance claims, and number 2, the STA findings as certified by North County Transit District. And if you have any questions, I can help answer those.
Okay, again, if members turn on their cameras, if they would have a question. Tessa, do we have any public comments or questions?
Thank you, Chair. I do not see any raised hands, nor do I have public comments at this time.
Okay, then we're looking for a motion to recommend item 7 in a second.
Jim, I move approval.
All right. Councilmember Feller. All right, we have Councilmember Feller making a motion, and then Mayor McNamara with a second. I saw Jewel pop in and out. She must have been, doesn't want to comment now. That's good. Okay, thank you very much, Ariana. Great report. And I'll ask for the clerk to call the roll call vote.
Thank you, Chair. On item 7, San Diego Airport Authority, Joanna Scavone.
Scavone is a yes.
City of San Diego, Councilmember Monica Montgomery.
Yes.
County of San Diego, Supervisor Jim Desmond.
Desmond, yes.
East County, Councilmember Bill Baber.
Yes.
Metropolitan Transit System, Mayor Alejandro Sotelo Solis.
Sotelo Solis, aye.
North County Coastal, Mayor Jewel Edson.
Edson, yes.
North County Inland, Mayor Paul McNamara.
McNamara, yes.
North County Transit District, Deputy Mayor Jack Feller.
Feller, yes.
Port of San Diego, Commissioner Gary Benelli.
Benelli, yes.
And South County Vice Chair Bill Sankey.
Sankey, yes.
Thank you. That item passes unanimously.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks, Ariana. We'll move on to item 8. This is the 2018 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, amendment number 13. Richard Radcliffe is going to be giving us a presentation, and this will be, we'll need a motion on this one for approval after the presentation. Richard, it's yours. Thanks.
Sorry, had to unmute. Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members of the Transportation Committee. I am here today with item 8, which is Amendment 13 to the 2018 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or RTIP. The 2018 Regional Transportation Improvement Program was approved by the Sandag Board of Directors in September of 2018. And the RTIP is a 5-year program of proposed major transportation projects in the San Diego region, covering fiscal years 2019 through 2023. Amendment 13 is being processed as an administrative modification so that State Highway Operation and Protection Program, or SHOP, projects can begin on July 1st, and so coordinated border infrastructure funds can be made available following authorization by the California Transportation Commission on June 24th. Attachment 1 on page 50 of the agenda is the summary of changes report showing the prior and revised project cost, the cost difference, and the percent change in each project. The key changes included in this amendment are the addition of shop funds to several group project listings for the 2020 shop as approved by the CTC in May, as well as the addition of coordinated border infrastructure or CBI funds to State Route 11. And please note that the approval of this amendment is contingent on the approval of the CBI funds by the CTC. If the funds are not approved, these projects will be removed from the amendment prior to submittal. Also included is the transfer of FTA 5307 and matching funds from preventative maintenance to bus purchases to accelerate the acquisition of zero emissions vehicles. Preventative maintenance funds are supplemented with CARES Act funding, which is not required to be programmed. In attachment 2, table 2 of your backup, beginning on page 52, you will find the changes proposed in Amendment 13. On June 17th, the Transnet Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee reviewed the proposed amendment, focusing their review on the Transnet-funded projects. No comments were received. The Transportation Committee is asked to approve Amendment 13 to the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, contingent on the California Transportation Commission's award of Coordinated Border Infrastructure Funds. That concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, Richard, thank you very much. If we have any comments or questions on from committee members on item 8, the Regional Transportation Improvement Program amendment? Seeing none. How about from our members of the public, from the clerk, Tessa?
Thank you, Chair. I do not have public comments, nor do I see raised hands at this time.
Okay, so then we're looking for a motion in a second for item 8.
Mr. Chair, would you accept a motion to approve the staff recommendation, please?
Thank you very much, Councilmember Sankey, or Vice Chair Sankey, sorry, and Ms. Montgomery, Councilmember Montgomery.
I will second the motion.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. Okay, we have a motion and a second. I see no other further questions or discussion. Could I have a clerk call the roll call?
Thank you. On item 8, San Diego County Regional Airport Authority, Joanna Schiavone.
Schiavone, yes.
City of San Diego, Councilmember Monica Montgomery.
Yes.
County of San Diego, Chair Jim Desmond.
Desmond, yes.
East County, Councilmember Bill Baber.
Yes.
MTS, Mayor Alejandro Sotelo Solis.
Sotelo Solis, aye.
North County Coastal, Mayor Jewel Edson.
Edson, yes.
North County Inland, Mayor Paul McNamara.
McNamara, yes.
North County Transit District, Deputy Mayor Jack Feller.
Aye.
Port of San Diego, Commissioner Gary Vanelli.
Benelli, yes.
And South County Vice Chair Bill Sankey.
Yankee, yes.
Thank you. That item passes unanimously.
All right, thank you, everyone. Moving on to item 9. This is our Regional Bikeway Program update. This is a discussion, possible action, if we so choose. Linda Culp is going to be giving us the program update. Linda, it's all yours. You're muted, Linda.
All right, thank you, Chair. Good morning, this is Linda Culp. Here to give you an update on our Regional Bikeway program since we were last talking about this in February. Next slide. Overall, the Early Action Program is adds up to 77 miles of regional bikeways. We are right now working on 90% of those, or 70 miles of the EAP, and the chart there shows you what that looks like in terms of the project development stage. Overall, 9 miles open to the public. Another 16 are in construction right now, and we have many miles that are finishing final design and will be ready for construction shortly. Next slide. There are a number, next slide. There are a number of project features in all of our bikeways. Overall, we are creating a network of separated or protected bikeways. We do that for the safety of not only people on their bikes or walking, but folks that are also in their cars. So we slow down traffic on with a number of features like neighborhood traffic circles, putting in a lot of pedestrian improvements such as high visibility crosswalks, other signal improvements. Next slide. Not all bicycle and pedestrian related, but there are other capital improvements that are part of all of our projects. And this photo is a photo of the bicycle pedestrian bridge in the city of Encinitas Coastal Rail Trail project. So lots of structures, retaining walls, bridges, and a lot of the civil improvements that go along with that go into our schedules and in our project budget. Next slide. And certainly, you know, through this, how will we be successful? Who will use these bikeways? And certainly the serious cyclists can use these, are welcome to use this. A lot of times they're staying on the roadways, if you click, but where we believe we'll be successful, if you can click one more time, are those ages, all abilities, types of riders, and all sorts of trip purposes. Across our region, whether you're going on a shopping trip, a school trip, going to transit, going from transit, those are the kind of users that we're designing our program for. Next slide. So now I'd like to give you some just recent progress on a few of our construction projects. Next slide. First, in the city of San Diego is a couple of miles of the Coastal Rail Trail along our Rose Creek Bikeway project. And you can see there in the photo, bicycle pedestrian bridge over Rose Creek. Next slide. Lots of civil improvements in this project. Retaining walls are been some of the recent progress here. Next slide. And you can see that in the photo. Drainage improvements along this section of Santa Fe. They're working on the bridge in the lower photo. Next slide. Here's a snapshot of that 2 miles, as I said, in the city of San Diego. We're over 80% complete, and real happy to report that we're still on schedule to be finished up and open this fall. This is a heavily used corridor already. It's a main way you get from downtown area up to UC San Diego and University Town Center. The chart that is our famous banana curves, and this just shows you the relationship between how much time we're taking and how complete we are. And generally, you like to stay inside the banana. So we had earlier on in the project some delays related to some utility relocations, and that kind of shows up on the curve. But generally, we're working really well on this project. Next slide. Next, we'll go up to the North County area and our Inland Rail Trail project. This is parallels our Sprinter corridor that Matt Tucker mentioned in his update earlier. And you can see that here we're doing a lot of work in terms of a retaining wall near Buena Creek and the Sprinter station there. Next slide. This is also in the county of San Diego and also predominantly in the city of Vista. And this photo, I think, illustrates just how close we are to a working railroad, and that does present challenges from time to time and does require some expertise there that maybe some of the other urban bikeways do not. Next slide. But we're getting ready to open this. Happy to report, you know, we've had some significant work on a retaining wall there near Buena Creek, as I mentioned, but the crews right now are working on, you know, kind of last things such as landscape. You can see in the top right-hand corner photo. Next slide. Here's a snapshot of this. As I mentioned, 3 miles in the county of San Diego, cities Vista, and a very small portion in northeast Oceanside. Well over 90% complete, expected to open here later this summer. This banana curve, though, looks a lot different than the last one. And I'd say this project in particular has suffered from a lot of challenges that have shown up on this. And for example, we've had numerous redesigns while we're in construction. We've had utilities delays that has delayed the project. We've had weather events, particularly in the spring, just trying to finish up the project, and having all that rain in April really impacted us. And so we're working through those. We'll probably be coming back to the board with those later on this year. but I'm happy to report that we are working through those. And one of the things we do is we learn lessons and we translate those into future segments of Bikeway. And so we have another segment that's under design in the city of Vista, and we've definitely taken steps to hopefully avoid these challenges for that segment. Next slide. Next is back down in the city of San Diego, and this is out in the North Park Mid-City area, 6.5 miles in the green and purple lines along Georgia Meade and Landis in that area. Very dense area, lots of schools, the 2 main transit centers there, so we'll be providing first and last mile connectivity to them. Next slide. This is a rendering of one of the several neighborhood traffic circles that we are currently building, and it does illustrate how all of the improvements work together. And so you can see the roadway improvements, the bicycle improvements, and the significant pedestrian improvements that we are putting in. So how all those work together. And then the next slide will show you some actual construction photos of some of these traffic circles. Next slide. This is along Meade Avenue. Next slide, just to kind of show you some of our progress. And then next slide, please, show you one of the finished circles that finished up recently last month. Next slide. And here's the project snapshot. As I mentioned, 6.5 miles of urban bikeways in the city of San Diego. Started earlier this year, and you can see how that overall the banana curve looks. And it will take us through this year, through next, and we plan to be open in spring of 2022 with all 6.5 miles. Next slide. And last, in terms of the construction update, is the first segment of our Uptown Bikeways. You can see in the map our 4th and 5th Avenue corridors is 4.5 miles there in blue. And if you're in 401 B Street, you head right into the bikeway on 5th Avenue up to Hillcrest and then back down 4th Avenue, essentially the project. Next slide. And this is a rendering of 5th Avenue. We're looking north, so we've left our building and we're heading up towards the Hillcrest area. And you can see the bikeway improvement along the left-hand side of the street, a lot of landscaping and other improvements, particularly in the Bankers Hill area, will be going in as part of this project, partnering with the city of San Diego. We are looking for some actual construction activity to start over the next couple of months on this. And I know our communications team has been real busy with noticing the businesses and the larger community for this one. Next slide. We currently have another 7 projects over at the city of San Diego working their way through the approval stage. We have 3 in particular that we're concentrating our efforts working with the city on right now, and that's the Barrio Logan segment of the Bayshore Bikeway. That has been over at the city for well over a year in review, as has Imperial and the Pershing Bikeway. So we are getting close to those 3 in particular, but we do have 7 all told over working with the city. Next slide. Next, I wanted to kind of end the presentation by talking about ridership. And over the region, we have 8 different main bikeway corridors that we monitor in terms of loops in the pavement that when folks ride over them, we collect data and that sort of thing. And so I pulled out 3 this morning to just give you an idea of, first of all, the ridership, but then this spring, as we've seen so many folks working at home and businesses and gyms closing and that kind of thing, how the COVID-19 pandemic is translating into some ridership statistics. So the first chart here is a section of the Bayshore Bikeway down in South Bay. This is right on the Chula Vista National City border. And all 3 charts have common legends. So the blue line is the ridership on a typical day last spring, so January through May of last year. And then the black line shows you that same count, but this spring. And it really shows you, particularly since March, how those ridership numbers have increased. And just for this segment of the Bayshore Bikeway, I'll just give you some numbers here. In May of last year, typical day, we had about 311 riders going over this section of the corridor. This May, almost 750 riders. So you know, almost a doubling of ridership during this time. So this is along the Bayshore Bikeway. Next slide. And this is in the Rose Canyon area. This is just north of Rose Creek Bikeway that we talked about our construction project a few minutes ago. But this is in Rose Canyon. We have a counter there. And I mentioned it's a very heavily used corridor, you know, any day of the week. Lots of commuters on this corridor. But you can see the blue line last spring compared to the black line now. Just the numbers, we had about 345 riders through here on a typical day last spring, almost 700 this spring. So it's really showing you that difference in ridership. And then the last example I have for you is the next slide, which is in the city of San Marcos up in North County, and that is along the Inland Rail Trail. Next slide, please. And again, similar trend over last spring versus this spring. And we are working on all 8 corridors, as I mentioned. Overall, we saw for all 8 corridors a 45% increase in ridership between last spring and this spring. Some very positive news there for our corridors. And similar to the 2-page info bit that we did on traffic congestion a few weeks ago, we are working on an additional publication that everyone will see next month or so on these on all 8 of our bikeway corridors. So with that, I will stop and happy to take any comments or questions that you have for me.
Do you have any member comments or questions? Mayor Edson.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda, for the presentation. It's great to see that the Bike EAP is moving forward. Completion will bring many positives throughout our region, including reduction of GHG first and last mile solutions and increasing safety for bike riders. And it's wonderful to see the increase in ridership. It's maybe an only silver lining thing with COVID, but people getting out on their bikes and feeling safe when they might not have gotten out on them before may encourage them to continue to use bikes as a multimodal solution to getting to work, even post-COVID, so, or to school or to wherever. But it's great to see it moving forward, and thank you very much for the report.
Thank you. Mr. Benelli.
Thank you, Chair Desmond. Linda, thanks again for the report. Remind me, paint for a picture for me, the border to Bayshore Bikeway. Where's that alignment coming from on the border? Where will it connect to the Bayshore Bikeway?
Yeah, great, happy to. That's about 6.5 miles. It starts at the San Ysidro port of entry, just on the U.S. side, and it works its way around the city of San Diego, lots of neighborhoods there, a portion into Imperial Beach, and then it terminates with the connection at the Bayshore Bikeway at Bikeway Village there in the city of Imperial Beach.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Ritter. You're muted, Judy. You're muted. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Am I the only one that can't hear Judy?
No, sir, she is self-muted. You might want to exit and come back in if the mute button is not working.
It says I'm unmuted, so I guess I'm.
There you are.
Are you there? Oh, okay. So I want to thank, boy, I want to thank, didn't want to talk that bad. I want to thank Linda for her report, but I think she said the next segment in Vista was in design, but I just would want to know if we could have like an update on the grant funding for the gap, because that's an important part of Vista. That gets us from Escondido, I think, all the way to Oceanside and the coastal rail trail. So I think that gap is really important, and I want to know where that funding. There was a grant that was applied for, and I just know is there the status of that? What the status would be?
actually, the state gave all of the potential grantees more time because of the work from home orders and that kind of thing. And so we are have not submitted that grant. We had about 3 more months. So the new deadline is in September. So we're still working on that application, and we'll submit it by the deadline for that gap connection.
Jim?
Yeah, Mr. Feller? Jack?
Thank you. I just kind of did a mental calculation of us in part of the 3 miles that is in Vista, the county, and Oceanside, and I think it's like 0.02 100ths of the project is in Oceanside, and I'm hoping it is completed to the end of at least to Melrose to get Oceanside connected there. But as far as the future, I hope Oceanside starts getting some of the love that everybody else is for their bike trails.
All right, Mr. Feller, appreciate that. I guess I have a question too. It's on that inland. That's the worst banana curve I've ever seen, Linda, on that inland rail trail. So we're not even in the banana. But how much is left of that inland rail trail? I mean, I know you've got the 3 miles is almost done, the 91% in the county in Vista. How much is left of that to connect it from Vista to Oceanside, or all the way actually to the coaster station in Oceanside? Is that 5 miles, 3 miles?
I think that the
Linda?
remaining segment, the remaining segment that we would have once the gap that Mayor Ritter mentioned in Vista, once that's funded and completed, then the only remaining segment would be in the city of Oceanside. And I would say that's about 7 to 8 miles.
That's a long stretch. It's just that when the frustration in North County, as usual, is waiting for dollars here for these the rail trail here. We were promised, if we voted for the Sprinter and for the extra tax for the Sprinter, that we'd get this bike trail. Well, the Sprinter's been open for over a decade, and I realize there's construction challenges along the way, but it'd be nice to. And we always hear, well, we were waiting for money. We applied for a grant. We're waiting for money, but we see other projects moving forward. And I get it. We can't be the head of the line, but we've been at the tail of the line. And my understanding is even on this next grant application, we're not even in the A group. We're kind of in the B group as far as getting more dollars for this inland rail trail. So as much as, I tout roads for North County, I'm also going to, we also need the rail trail that's been promised. And it's been frustrating for us to be waiting over a decade and still waiting and waiting for those dollars. So do you have, I noticed on slide 2, you have sort of a bar chart there that shows planning, preliminary design, final design. Where is that 7 to 8 miles? Is it in the final design? Is it in preliminary or still planning? Where is that gap? That I see it. We have a "you are here" arrow at the bottom, I guess overall, but where is the inland rail trail on that?
Yes, the segments that we're working on now, of course, those are in the construction bar. The segment that we will be working on, the 1 mile segment in Vista, that's in the final design bar. And then the segments that we mentioned in the city of Oceanside are not on this chart. They were below the EAP funding line. So the Oceanside segments are not in these numbers on the chart.
All right, so they're not even in planning at all.
Correct.
That's sad to hear, particularly waiting over a decade for this. But I guess we weren't in the early action plan. So, all right. Okay, any other comments or questions? Is there any public comments on this, Tessa?
Yes, Chair, we have two hands raised. Nicole Burgess, or three, I'm sorry. But first we'll call Nicole Burgess.
He probably has two hands up, but go ahead. Okay.
Thank you, Chair Desmond. I feel your frustrations as well. And I want to thank the rest of the Transportation Board and for your leadership during your challenging times. This is all difficult for all of us. Linda, thank you so much for the report and all your staff for the hard work. You know, we've seen some of the bike counts. We all know that ridership is going up and have seen it basically in our communities, and our residents are getting on their bikes, and bike shops are overpacked, and it's great to see, but yet our infrastructure is still not up to par. And yes, Desmond, I acknowledge a decade is too long to wait for these projects. So it is challenging for all of us to patiently wait for some of our projects. I want to say thank you to also Sandag for initiating the Shared Streets pilot program, and it's 12 cities in the county for applying for the funding and implementing slow streets. I honestly believe this is a great quick implementation for people to feel safe riding in their communities. And it is also a great way to allow businesses to expand into public right-of-way and have business prosperity as they continue to open up and provide dining outdoor in our beautiful city. As COVID has made us all dramatically change the way we live, move, and adapt, we can see that it's not going away. We know social and racial justice is going to continue to be a priority, and the climate crisis is actually going to continue to challenge us all and affect us all. So as the Sandag creates long-term plans, it is more important than ever to prioritize these short-term, low-cost efforts for slow streets, for better bike infrastructure. We know it's critical for our residents to feel safe in the bike infrastructure. So as you mentioned, it shouldn't take a decade to plan for these bike improvements. And so lastly, I'll just say, you know, Sandag, it's mentioned by boards in the past that really, you know, do we relook and reevaluate our bicycle network, and how do we create a quicker build out of this network? And just that Bayshore Bikeway, as Benally brings up, you know, that east connection up Toyas Creek is one of the most equitable projects, but it's probably not even on a list of Sandag. So, you know, we have a lot of work to do, and I thank you all on this board of transportation board for your support and supporting active transportation projects in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess. And yeah, after a decade, not even in the planning stage yet for 7 miles of that trail. Okay, Tessa, do we have someone else or a couple other people, folks?
Yes, sir. Next public speaker is Jean-Guillaume Landry.
Yeah, yeah, you're doing better with the name. Thank you. Thank you for the report, and thanks Sandag and MTS for the hard work generally. I'm always the first one to be ready to criticize it, but at least you're making it happen. I'd like to contribute in the spirit of what's been said before me. I'm with SD 350. When I moved to San Diego, one thing that struck me was the scarcity of bicyclists in a city that has the ideal climate. If you go to Flagstaff in the middle of a snowstorm, you'll see more bicyclists out than in San Diego on a perfect day. So for SD 350 yesterday, I decided to visit 9 bike shops around San Diego and La Mesa and ask them how much busier they had been this year than last year. And I came to 2 conclusions. First, I'm out of shape. 2, among the changes caused by the pandemic, people have taken to cycling en masse in San Diego. All 9 shops reported increased activity. Here are some quotes. The most moderate quote was, "We're busier." But apart from that, overwhelmed, too much work, record sales, sales up 3-fold month to month in May, activity up 300 to 500%, no inventory left, 1 month out in service and repairs, and the sales reps have never seen anything like this. Nationwide, bike sales are up 75%, electric bikes up 90%. So we know that complying with our greenhouse gas emission goals will be complicated, and the transport part of this will be a nightmare. And this pandemic has just given us an opportunity to make unforeseen gains in fields in which we had little ambition for GHG reductions, such as telecommuting and bicycling. So we now know that there is a demand in San Diego for a real cycling culture. And if we don't want to cancel this recent step forward with a step back, we should keep investing in making sure that bicycling remains as safe as it has been for the last 2 months. Additionally, if bike lockers were installed at more trolley stations, I mean all trolley stations, and more bus stops, we might be able to take advantage at little cost of this recent change and shift more transit, including commuting, to bike and public transportation. That's my comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Tessa, we have someone else?
Deputy Mayor Terry Gasterland.
Hi, this is Deputy Mayor Terry Gasterland, and I want to echo Supervisor Desmond's plug for the North County. And why is it important? Because not only connecting the inland North County trails together, but connecting inland to coastal is important. Del Mar alone receives 1 million visitors to our beaches every year, and we could easily have more, or have it be a more comfortable environment if there were bikers instead of cars for at least some of our visitors. The e-bikes are so important. This, as just mentioned, e-bike sales are up 90%. We can now, with the inland trails that go from Del Mar straight inland, I can go to Trader Joe's 5 miles away, just on the other side of Torrey Pines High School, and back with a trailer on the back of my e-bike and do all my grocery shopping. It's a terrific way of life, and it's a whole lot healthier. The trails are safer than the roads. When we're on the roads, especially as we're going past I-5 entrances and exits, we're dodging the cars. So these rails to trails and the inland trails and the connection of coastal to inland by trails is incredibly important. So thank you very much for this presentation. And I want to also echo the previous speaker. Bike mock-ups at the bus, train, and trolley stops will make a huge difference, because I can ride my e-bike to some place where there's nonstop public transportation or no change to get to my next spot. And I certainly would welcome that. I'm sure that many others would as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Vice Mayor Gasterland. This is, I don't know, does anybody have a motion or anything to make on this item? This is possible, this is discussion, possible action. If there's no motion, we can just move on. All right, hearing and seeing none. Our next meeting, is there any other continued public comments for non-agendized item, Tessa?
I do not see hands raised at this time, Chair.
Okay, well, our next meeting is going to be Friday, July 17th at 9 a.m. Great meeting this morning. Thanks everybody sticking around. This meeting's adjourned.